You know what else fires me up, Craig?
I love you getting fired up about Cincinnati Reds baseball, Reed.
I do. I get fired up about baseball in a way that I guess I didn't recognize as frequently as I do. Like Stone always makes fun of me. He's like, you get fired up when it comes to baseball sometimes. I do. Let's get fired up about something else. Did you have a chance to either read or see some of the snippets from Paul Dehner's article, friend of the show, Paul Dehner? He's been on Stone Shield show on before. Article about kind of where the Bengals are at in terms of Zac Taylor and Duke Tobin. Did you get a chance to see any of the snippets of that or read it?
Well, let me start with this. When you wake up to a text message from Reed Mouse that was sent to you at 6 a.m., you automatically know something happened. He's not reaching out because he just wants to be friends. He's reaching out because something happened.
Whoa. We are friends.
I immediately said, oh, man, what's he want to talk about? What happened? What's the breaking news? And then I opened the old X account, and first thing that pops up, of course, is Paul Dehner's article. And, yes, I had a chance to read through the entire thing. And I don't know about you, Reed. I think I tweeted this out. I think the biggest bombshell in this entire thing that really kind of shapes the rest of the conversation is that after the second AFC Championship game, Zac Taylor was given another 5-year contract. And so he actually has 2 years left under his contract, despite what everyone thought was that he was going into his final year of his contract. So now the conversation shifts. Again, he's making like $4.5 million. Let's not make this into some sort of massive amount of money that the Bengals would have to pay to not have Zac Taylor as their coach. But the truth of the matter is that this is the same organization that allowed Marvin Lewis to be a lame duck in his final year because they didn't want to have to pay him not to coach.
For people that didn't get a chance to read it, or people that haven't been on Twitter and seen the current uproar from Bengals fans, I'll sum it up as quickly and as best as I can. Pretty much everything that I talked about for an hour on yesterday's show about how they need to fire Duke Tobin, how they need to fire Zac Taylor, the article pretty much laid out it ain't happening. Duke Tobin's job is not in any jeopardy, even though there is noise from the outside. Zac Taylor has 2 years left on his contract that they'll have to pay out. So even if they fire him, they'll still owe about $9 million, meaning that if you go out, like I said yesterday, and get a $15 million head coach, which, by the way, is the going rate for really good head coaches in the NFL, which, by the way, is a steal when you're making it to the postseason every single year, that would mean the Bengals presumably will have to pay about $20 million over the next 2 years, which, I don't know if you've been around Cincinnati a time or two, ain't happening. It ain't happening here in this town. So buckle up, because we are strapped in for another few years of Duke Tobin or Zac Taylor. And Craig, you and I were fired up after they lost to the Bears and the Jets, and he said, by tomorrow morning, these guys better be out of a job. That was 6 weeks ago, and not only are they still with a job, they'll likely have the job for at least 2 more seasons. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
We're running it back, baby. As soon as I saw, I don't remember who it was, but someone tweeted out just like a reminder, Zac Taylor only has 1 year left on his contract. And then I saw that Paul Dehner responded with, not so fast.
Right. I thought that there was like an extension going on when I first read that. I was like, are they going to Craig, I'm not kidding you. If reports come out before the end of the year that Zac Taylor gets an extension on his contract, I'm done. I've never threatened this ever. But if he gets an extension before the end of the year, which is how I read that first tweet, it's not going to happen. But if that happens, I'm done. I'm out. But go on with your point.
I think one of the things that was most surprising to me yesterday, because I was doing some research on this, and it's been widely reported that Zac Taylor makes around $4.5 million, which we all know is on the low end of the spectrum. But what was surprising to me is I did some research around the other like lowest paid coaches in the NFL, right? Because there's a lot of conversation around, okay, if you fire Zac Taylor and let's say $5 million is your budget, who realistically are you going to be able to hire? And we all know about the Andy Reids of the world who are making $20 million a year, but who's on the other end of that spectrum? And I don't know if you've seen this, but there were a couple names that, of course, are not surprising at all, right? Dave Canales with the Carolina Panthers was a at the time considered a cheap hire, not really somebody that was on a lot of radars. Brian Callahan with the Tennessee Titans was on the list of the lowest paid. But then we get into some more like surprising names that are on that list. And it starts with Todd Bowles in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Todd Bowles is only making around $3 million a year. And that's a team that has been consistently in the playoffs for years now. You look at Kevin Stefanski, who has been NFL Coach of the Year twice, only making around $3.5 million. And then one, maybe the most surprising one, because he's due a new contract or whatever, but Dan Campbell in the Detroit Lions only making around $4 million a year. So everybody wants to paint us into this picture of, well, you can't find a good coach for only paying $4.5 million a year. I think you can, but you got to kind of luck into it, right? Kevin Stefanski wasn't the hottest name on the list when the Browns hired him.
No doubt.
Dan Campbell certainly wasn't the hottest name on the list when he was hired by the Lions. But they've turned into quality head coaches. And so it all turns into the question of, can this Bengals front office identify the up-and-coming talent in the coaching realm that maybe they can afford to bring in at an affordable rate while not being maybe the hottest name on the list, right? You're not going to go out and get a Jesse Minter. You're not going to go out and get a Robert Saleh. But are there other people that you can go out and get? You're certainly not going to go out and get John Gruden, but who can you get that maybe has the making of becoming that next high-quality head coach? And it's just a matter of, similarly to the draft, do they have the ability to identify that and to make that move? Or are we going to be in this kind of constant wheel of, hiring quarterback coaches that don't pan out?
And that's the point. Like, that's the point of why guys, dummies like me, say you have to spend more money, because the reason you spend more money, because it's a proven commodity. This team, you're right. Dan Campbell, really good head coach. He clearly has an element about him that the Lions, that city, kind of feeds off of. And yeah, you can shop in the bargain bin to get a guy like that. I think Dave Canellis is a pretty good head coach. Once again, you're shopping I would say guys like Todd Bowles, you probably got him on a discount because he was the heir apparent. He had failed before. So you're like, hey, we'll give you another shake at this thing, but you're going to have to take a budget cut because he was so eager to come. There's convincing here. But yes, you can shop in the bargain bin. You can do that and win some games. The problem is, with this front office and the mom and pop operation that we have here in Cincinnati, I have no confidence that they can get that very smart, well-esteemed player or coach. I don't believe they can. So yes, you do have to, if you want to be serious, you're going to have to spend a little more. And as I've mentioned time and time again, they can be cost cautious. That's what this team is. That's the diplomatic way of saying that they're very cheap. They're cautious in this city. But I guarantee you, Mike Brown, I guarantee you, Duke Tobin, Katie Blackburn, whoever's pulling the trigger on a head coaching hire, if they do go that route, which I don't believe they are. If you spend $15 million on a head coach, and this team is going to the playoffs perennially, like every single year, you are getting a budget. You are making your money back on that investment. There is no greater ROI in this sport than a great head coach. Great quarterbacks cost $60 million. Great wide receivers, great edge rushers cost $30 and $40 million. A great head coach costs about 15 to 20. That's a great return on investment.
Let's say you were given that $15 to $20 million budget.
Yeah.
Who's your first call if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and budget isn't a question?
So my first call, admittedly, is going to take something else happening in the division. I've said this before, and I get egg on my face, and people laugh at me all the time. If the Baltimore Ravens part ways with John Harbaugh, you make an incredible push for him. He might not want it. He's going to have a lot of opportunities. He's going to have a lot of suitors. You make a push for him. If Mike Tomlin becomes available, which it's becoming more and more likely that he stays in town because they just won again last night and they look like they're going to win the division. If that happens again and he gets fired, you make a serious push at them. If not for those two, I buckle in. You ready? A guy like Mike
I'm ready.
McCarthy isn't a bad hire. He's won everywhere he's gone. He's won 12 games with the Dallas Cowboys. He's won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. You can say, well, he's had good team. He had Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Well, he'll have Joe Burrow here. We've seen a proven track record of, okay, Mike McCarthy might not consistently get you over the hump. He went to a lot of NFC championships. He might not get you over the hump like he did in Dallas, but at least you're there. At least you're in the dance, which, by the way, is all we're asking here in Cincinnati. We're just asking to get to the dance, to get a date to the prom. That's all we're asking. Let us play in January and let's see what Joe does, because we've seen it twice, and the returns on that investment have been pretty good. So you can call me crazy for saying Mike McCarthy is a name that I'd hire. And by the way, you're not going to have to spend $15 million on Mike McCarthy. But that's a guy that I'd go after because he is a proven winner. He has just as many playoff wins as guys like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh. So you can laugh at that. I don't know what your opinion is on a guy like Mike McCarthy, which I know you've said defensive guys before. He's an offensive guy. But, yeah, Mike McCarthy would be a name that I'd go after.
Yeah, the thing about Mike McCarthy is that, yes, he's an offensive guy, but he gets organizational management. And I think the reason that it didn't work ultimately in Dallas is because Jerry Jones is so hands-on.
Sure.
So that's the question with Cincinnati is, all right, you have a de facto GM in Duke Tobin. Katie Blackburn handles the negotiations with free agents and with extensions. Will they allow him to be involved in that? And I'm on the record that I actually think that Zac Taylor has more say in personnel than many people give him credit for in terms of the draft and otherwise. So I do believe that Mike McCarthy would have success in Cincinnati if given the opportunity. John Harbaugh would be a slam dunk hire if he was available. But I think we both know that John Harbaugh, even if they called and offered him $15 million, probably does not take the Cincinnati job because, like you're saying, he would have so many other opportunities on his plate. But at the same time, he's got an offense in Cincinnati that he wouldn't have to spend a whole lot of time worrying about. He brings over basically his entire staff from Baltimore, and boom, now you're cooking in Cincinnati. So there is a world where that makes sense, and maybe he would come. But now let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum, Reed. Let's talk about the lesser known names that potentially would be on the list, and we put out a list of them on social media yesterday, as you know. A lot of people in the comments with some interesting takes and some different opinions. Obviously, a lot of conversation around John Gruden, around Jesse Minter, but I think those guys are probably out of the price range of what the Cincinnati Bengals will be looking for. I'm personally really intrigued by a guy like Matt Burke, who was able to very quickly turn around the Houston Texans defense. But again, as you know, I'm kind of leaning defensive side of the ball here in terms of where I'd be going.
Matt Burke doesn't intrigue me for two reasons. The latter of those two reasons is because he coaches underneath a defensive guy. So he's getting help. He's being guided on that side of the ball. And I'm with you that a defensive guy would be a great hire to this. But the other reason I wouldn't want a guy like Matt Burke or Jesse Minter or Joe Brady, guys like that, because I don't want a guy that learns on the job. I don't want a coach that's going to be coming in here and we've got to have some growing pains with him as a head coach. It might be a home run. We're seeing Ben Johnson do it in the Chicago Bears, but I think Ben Johnson is kind of an anomaly in the fact that he is one of the most highest regarded offensive coordinators that we had ever seen since Josh McDaniel with Tom Brady and the Patriots. But I don't want a guy to learn on the job because Joe Burrow's career, he's not getting younger. By the end of next season, he's going to be 30 years old. I want a guy that I don't have to grow with. I want a guy that is ready to go. John Gruden, Mike McCarthy, guys that have won in this league before. So that's where I'm there. I want the Bengals to spend money to get there, but we know that it's ultimately not going to happen. Is even if the unlikely thing that happens is, okay, they fire Zac Taylor, unlikely. It's even more unlikely that they spend big money to where the names that you are going to keep throwing out. So Matt Burke, Jesse Minter, give me another one if you got. Joe Brady hasn't coached hasn't been a head coach ever. He's the quarterback coach for Joe Burrow. Also, I'm sick and tired of the old 2019 LSU thing. It's been 6 years. We're on Thaddeus Moss, and there was the rumors we were getting Justin Jefferson, and then I seen some dummies on X.com when we put out that graphic say, let's bring in Coach O. Let's get Coach O here in town because no one knows Joe Burrow better than Coach O. And it's like, what are we doing? It's 6 years ago, guys. The game has changed. The world has changed. Go tag it.
I think the thing with even Joe Brady, though, like he's going to be probably the number one name on the list for many people in terms of available head coaching jobs and, outside of the existing head coaches if they get fired in John Harbaugh and stuff. But, like, I don't think he's even in the price range of the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of being their next head coach. He would have to take less to work for Cincinnati because he wants to work with Joe Burrow just because he wants to come to Cincinnati and work with this offense. Like, I don't think that this would be the best offer that Joe Brady gets in terms of a payday.
Right.
He's probably the hottest name on the market in terms of assistant coaches.
I do know this. Don't discount the attractiveness of the Bengals as a landing spot. When Marvin Lewis was hired, and he was kind of a big name when we hired him 25 years ago because he had been the DC through those great Ravens years. When we brought him in, the Bengals were a dumpster fire with really nothing going well for the last decade, a la like the New York Jets are right now. Even the last time that we hired Zac Taylor, we weren't a great landing spot because we didn't have a quarterback, we hadn't been successful, and we didn't have a great roster, and obviously everyone knew we were cheap. So we weren't a great landing spot once again. These guys that are going to be first-time head coaches in this league, you more often than not get one shot. You get one shot. If you fail, you don't get another one. It is very rare that a guy fails in his first job and gets another opportunity. So they have to be very picky. Guys like Brian Callahan, they don't have a whole lot of options. So, yeah, they go to the teams like the Titans. I think the Bengals are an attractive guys is an attractive spot for guys that, because they know they have one shot. And if I have one shot at being a head coach in this league, I feel pretty dang confident with Joe Burrow as my quarterback. So I think that we are more attractive of a spot as even Cincinnati Bengals fans will lead on to believe. I don't know your opinion.
The conversation that every head coach candidate is going to have the conversation with their agent is, do I want to work for, let's say the Bengals up their budget and they pay $7 million a year for the next head coach. Okay.
Sure.
Do I want to take the Cincinnati Bengals job and potentially have success at $7 million a year? Or, because most of these guys have the mindset that I can change and fix almost any situation, or do I want to hold out for one of those jobs paying 10 to 12, knowing that if I have success, regardless, I'm not jumping, right? If I go to Cincinnati and I have success in Cincinnati, I'm in Cincinnati and I'm staying in Cincinnati. Because when was the last time you saw a head coach jump from a head coaching job to a head coaching job without getting fired or forced out at their previous job? Nobody's being successful in the NFL as a head coach and jumping to another job.
Yeah.
So they have to have that conversation of, well, I'm going to, over the course of my career, probably make 50% less than I would other places. And I think I'm good enough that if X job opened up, I could turn that job around and I could stay there and I could be happy. Cincinnati is not exactly a place that people are jumping to be at. So that's the conversation.
I hear you. I hear you understanding that, yeah, guys pretty much stay at one place unless they've been forced out or anything like that. But as I mentioned earlier, like they oftentimes have one shot at this, right? And they know that if they come here and have even success, and maybe it falls out. Maybe the first few years you make the postseason, but then those last 2 years were kind of bad, and we'll move on. Then you're going to at least get some more interviews. People are going to be like, yeah, well, remember those first few years with Joe Burrow? That wasn't too terrible. Or even this, you would have some bargaining power. We haven't really seen that from coaches to where they can go bargaining and be like, you know what? I don't necessarily like it here in town. I know Joe Burrow's here, but I'm not really ready to be locked in unless you start paying me a lot more money. I'm going to take this season and then I'll go look somewhere else. So there is an opportunity to kind of mold the market in your image. I'm just telling you that here in Cincinnati, it is a more attractive spot than it has been pretty much ever in the history of this franchise. And it is because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I think we've got to see how things shape out for the rest of the year because there are a lot of coaches that have been rumored, and I know they're far-fetched, been rumored to be on the hot seat that I'm intrigued to see what happens. I think the name that comes around, and it's been several weeks since his name has been thrown around, but there was a time when Matt LaFleur's name was getting thrown around as he could get fired. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We thought it was far-fetched then, and now with all the injuries, he has a built-in excuse. He's going to come back, but that's another name. The Packers go like, you know what? I think we should go elsewhere in this. Oh my goodness, would I leap out of my chair to go hungry for him? And I think that's a really good fit. I think that'd be a really good fit here in town. So,
well, let's not forget Connor Orr's article from a couple of days ago. The senior writer from Sports Illustrated. Who says it like that? Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated. It is an illustration of sports.
Yeah. Many industry eyes are on the Bengals, where there is massive curiosity about whether Cincinnati will move on from Zac Taylor. The opportunity to work with Joe Burrow is a market shifter. And I do believe that, like you're saying, there's a potential that some of those big names would want to work with him. So I know you have buy or sell on your rundown, and we've only got like 5 minutes left, and we haven't even talked about the article for the most part. But let's do a lightning round of buy or sell. I'll give you the name. You tell me if you're buying or selling them as a candidate for the Cincinnati Bengals next head coach.
A legitimate candidate or someone that I'd want to hire?
Someone that you would want to hire.
Okay. Sling it.
So tell me if you're buying them, if you're in charge as the next head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes,
Jeff Halfley.
I buy. I like Jeff Halfley. Yep. He's been a head coach
Vance
before.
Joseph.
He's been a head coach before. That's kind of a thing that I'd want.
Correct.
Vance Joseph. I'd buy that too. Once again, has been a head coach before. He's not learning on the job. And he's a defensive guy.
Brian Flores.
Boom, boom. Brian Flores got a bad rap in Miami. That's a name that I'd be very, very hungry for.
Okay.
Bye.
Matt Burke.
So he's
Jesse Minter.
I Mount St. Joe legend selling. And I know that's one of the hotter names because I want a guy that's coached before. I can't have you learning on the job in Joe Burrow's age 30 season. I can't have it. So
Joe Brady.
Sell. And it's partly I'm jaded a little bit because I'm tired of hearing about the 2019 LSU Tigers here in town. I'm tired of that being a guiding principle on what the Bengals should do going forward. Is you remember that 2019 LSU season? It was awesome. It was 6 years ago. Let it go.
Mike McCarthy. We know your answer.
Big old buy. That's a big buy for me. He's a proven winner.
Gruden.
He's a proven John Gruden. I'd buy.
Oh, come on.
Can we have a conversation?
He said.
Can we have a?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was
you
going to
first.
say he says come on because he's a proven winner. Why do you say come on? That
The
he's
come on was the Gruden.
Oh,
Gruden's
okay.
been out for way too long.
Okay.
Way too long. I'm in on McCarthy too. That might
Did
be
you
one of your
give
best takes, Reed.
your answer on John Gruden?
He said he
What'd
would
you say
buy
on John Gruden?
I said buy. I think the personality fits really well with where I want this franchise to go. I'm kind of tired of the vanilla Zac Taylor, and Gruden ain't gonna give you vanilla. You're getting sprinkles, you're getting a caramel topping, you're getting a crunch coat, you're getting all sorts of things. You're not just getting vanilla, you're getting Rocky Road, baby.
Ryan Day.
Sell. Listen, I am a man of God, and if I wanted to bring a satanic team's head coach into Cincinnati, you're gonna find me hung up somewhere. So yeah, selling Ryan Day.
Matt Patricia.
I'm selling that one. I can't get onto that one. I know it ticks a lot of the boxes that I've said, but I'm selling Matt Patricia.
And outside of John Gruden, maybe the most popular name in our comments on social media, Bill Belichick.
I said 3 years ago on this show, and I got laughed out of this room by Tom Brenneman and Elliot Rearing for saying that I'd rather have Zac Taylor be the head coach than Bill Belichick. Another prerequisite on my is you cannot have a Pablo Torre finds out episode about you within the last year to be my head coach. So if you've had a Pablo Torre finds out episode about you within the last year, I'm out. I'm out of it. All right, so that means that Mark Cuban and Steve Ballmer can also not be my head coach. That means that Riley Gaines can't be my head coach. So it's slim pickings when you include the Pablo Torre finds out. All right. Craig,
We didn't even talk about Duke Tobin. Can we just agree that the least surprising part of the Paul Dehner article this morning was that Duke Tobin is safe?
I saw the excerpt from this because I didn't get the blessing of reading the entire article. I saw the excerpt where he said, Paul Dehner has never faced as much external pressure for his job than he has right now. But inside, he ain't going anywhere. It's like, are you kidding me, dude?
It's a quick enough excerpt. I'll read it for you real quick. Yes, in most places, the de facto general manager of a team that missed the playoffs 3 consecutive years while employing Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins would be on the hot seat, specifically when considering a bottom quarter defense 3 years running, impacted by a debilitating series of roster construction blunders. That's just not the case here. There are cracks in the foundation, absolutely. There's no way around the results and outrage currently directed at Tobin by the fan base. He's never seen his role challenged or exposed to this level externally. Internally, however, it's just not happening. Tobin is viewed as family in nearly the same regard as the actual Browns and Blackburns. There is zero thought that his job is in jeopardy. He will have to lead the Bengals out of this drought, and ownership trusts him to do so.
Tobin is thought as family. We all have family here, and every once in a while there's an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or a sibling that you got to cut off because the relationship's just too toxic. They just keep messing the whole thing up. And Duke Tobin's been in charge of making the turkey and the stuffing and the mashed potatoes for years here, and we're pretty much all the food is inedible based off the draft picks that we've had the last few seasons. This roster is so freaking far away from competing at any level whatsoever, and the main reason for that is Duke Tobin, the de facto general manager here in town, and I am sick and tired of the draft picks that we are bringing into this town. If I have to see Mel Kiper question or whoever at the draft be like, man, I can't believe the Bengals took this guy here, or the stats come up and we drafting a guy at the 17th pick that has 3 career collegiate sacks, I'm going to pull my hair out or what's left because it's receding at a rapid rate, Craig. So I get it. Nothing from that article surprises me, but it still fires me up, if that makes sense, because I've never been this far.
We have breaking news.
Oh, baby. Oh.
Breaking news, and we're going to fire Nick Kirby up. Nick, are you awake? Are you watching? Because the Cincinnati Reds just announced the 2026 Hall of Fame class for the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. And we all know Nick Kirby has been pining for Reggie Sanders to get into the Hall of Fame. And I have good news. Reggie Sanders, a member of the class of 2026 for the Cincinnati Reds. He's joined by Lou Piniella, Aaron Harang, and none other than that dude, Brandon Phillips.
That's a good class. I'm glad Aaron Harang.
Great class.
I'm glad Aaron Harang came in because Aaron Harang was a part of teams that were never good, but he was came close to leading the league in strikeouts every single year. Aaron Harang, obviously Brandon Phillips was a fan favorite, maybe the most popular Reds player of the last 25 years. Reggie Sanders was great in the 90s, and Lou Piniella obviously won a World Series here in 1990. So that's a good class. It's a good class for the class.
It is a good class. I would imagine that Kirby and I, or Kirby and somebody, will have a special Chatterbox Reds up for discussion about this here sometime today or tomorrow morning. So a little special plug for the Chatterbox Reds. But
yeah,
keep an eye out for a video on that. I'm sure it'll be coming out soon.
Craig, as always, thank you for letting me steal 30 minutes of your day. You get me fired up every time you come on here on the show. Hopefully we get some Chatterbox Bengals content together throughout the week. Thank you so much for doing the watch-alongs for the last 4 weeks. I'll be back this Sunday. I got to get you some time off I got to get you just a normal Sunday here.
I told you, we're doing it in person together.
Oh, that's
We're doing it together this weekend.
That's right. You're coming into town. You're coming up here. So hey,
let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, we're doing it live here from.
I'll get you all fired up in person this time.
Yeah. Maybe that's not.
It won't be hard.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Did you watch the Dolphins last night? Sorry, we're eating into Stone's time, but the Dolphins last night were.
Oh, it's all good. Keep it going.
The Tua in cold weather is as easy as an auto fade if you're into sports gambling as you've ever seen. There's a bubble with quarterback contracts, and Tua, Kyler Murray, those names, they're at the forefront of it. I don't know how you give guys Just because they're a franchise quarterback, $55 million is beneath me. Someone's got to stand their ground and be like, well, I'm not giving you $55 million. You can go to free agency. I don't care. We'll try somewhere else. Tua's arm looks like he's a Red Ryder BB gun or a water pistol of some sort when it gets cold or even when it's warm. So, but shout out to Mike Tomlin. He may have saved his job unless they lose by 40 points in their first playoff game once again. Then he might be out. And then hopefully we bring him into town. Man, wouldn't that be a change of press conferences? Craig, I got to let you go. We got to let Stone get on to his show. Thank you so much for hopping on.
All right, brother. We'll see you this weekend.
See you, Craig.